looking for inspiration, peace, and a deeper connection with your soul? If you're ready to investigate your higher truth, take a deeper look inside, and discover a better way to live, stay tuned for Higher Soul Living, where we ignite your divine intelligence for life. With me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. I experienced a profound spiritual awakening that was so life-changing. It took me into a 30-year career as a metaphysical life coach and breathwork expert. I've mentored thousands of people through their personal challenges, anxiety, self-doubt, and search for meaning. Higher Soul Living is about choosing to live the higher way. It's about taking conscious ownership and drawing spiritual intelligence into your everyday life. Join me on a search for higher truth to find hope, connection, and happiness. The Higher Soul Living Show starts now. Hello everyone, this is Reverend Christine Hart-Savage, back again for part 4 of Life After Death. There's so many things to do with life and dying and death, or what we call, or I like to call transitioning. There's so much. So I was going to do one episode, and here we are on part 4. So today, what we're going to look at is, are there spiritual laws and rules on the other side? It's an interesting topic. I think it's quite exciting. In fact, this whole topic is exciting. As I think I mentioned to you in one of the episodes, maybe it was one, that when I was moving house, I downsized into an apartment, or I don't know, about 16, 17 months ago. And I had to clear so many books out of my old place, because I had, floor to ceiling and just really wide wall of bookcases with just so many books. And as I was packing everything up, I really did have to give a lot to charity, and I love my books, so that was really difficult. But that's when I really became aware of how many books on life after death, on life between lives, all sorts of different things to do with this transition, and whether or not we're connected with this higher realm, even when we're living on Earth. So it's one of the things I've always been very interested in, and hopefully you are too. So today, what we're going to really look at is just open this up and have a discussion about it, uncover it a little bit, maybe open some minds to possibilities or not. Everyone's got their own beliefs and their own experiences around this. So when a loved one transitions to the other side, are there spiritual laws that they have to abide by in that heavenly realm? Are there rules? If the vibrational frequencies of the deceased soul, now this is really interesting. If you've listened to my other podcasts on this, I have talked about this a little bit, but if the vibrational frequencies of the deceased soul and the living soul align and a connection is established, are there certain spiritual rules or conditions, a system of sorts that must be met and adhered to during that visitation? So during that connection between the earthly realms and the spiritual realms, are there rules around that? I'd like to really look at that today and just see what we come up with. And are they allowed, Spirit, to help us whilst we're on Earth? So today, I'd really like to open this up. It's an unusual and interesting topic. It's one that I find really fascinating. So I hope you do too. There's a lot to learn. We don't know a lot about this. There's so much, in fact, that we don't know about other higher dimensions, about the spiritual realm of life. And the more I learn about this, the more experience I have, the more I realize we have absolutely no idea. There's this whole other world or dimension out there, and we've got a lot to learn. It's very exciting. I have to excuse my voice. I know I've said this a lot lately, but that influenza A I had 2 months ago is still causing me coughing and a funny throat. So excuse me. I'm going to say all my excuse me's and sorries right now for the whole podcast in case I cough and splutter. So, what I'd like to do is talk about what I've been shown in my personal life and my working life with clients over the last 30 odd years. What I've found that there seems to be, and I will call them vibrational systems, if you like, in play on the other side. Now, I'm going to ask you now these questions. What do you think about this? What are your beliefs in this area, your personal beliefs? Have you even ever thought of it? Maybe some haven't. Are you open to it? Are you open to it? Are you open to there being these connections between the living realm and meaning on earth and the non-living realm? I think they're still living, but the other realm. Are there rules and laws on the other side? Are there do's and don'ts when it comes to connecting with our deceased loved ones? Oh, I can hear a helicopter. And another little gem that I thought of that I'd like to just share this with you is food for thought. Have you ever thought about the words we use when we speak about earth as opposed to the words we use when we speak about heaven? We use completely different language. We use one language to describe earth and another one to describe heaven. And we do so by using just one different little word, just one tiny word, and yet it creates a whole other meaning to what we're speaking about. So when we speak of earth, we speak about earth, we say on earth. When we speak about heaven or a higher realm, we say in heaven. We speak about these two different realities, or we speak about these realities differently, these two realities differently. We describe them differently with that one word. The only difference being on and in. But it's really a completely different communication, one that we all seem to innately understand as well. When we say it, it just makes sense to us. But usually we haven't thought about it. So I have thought about it. So on earth, I think refers to our familiar, tangible world, our physical world. In heaven, I think represents the non-tangible world, a spiritual or divine realm associated with the afterlife or a transcendent reality. Don't you just love this stuff? I just love it. So are we? Are we part of the heavenly realm, the spiritual realm, eternally? And what I mean by this is maybe we're always connected to that realm and we don't know it. Maybe there's just an aspect of us embodied here, and the larger part of us is still living within a higher dimension. What do you think? Do you think there's a possibility? So, do we descend into the physical dimension, the physical world, and live our physical lives on earth? Do we descend from that and then return to whence we've come? Go back to where we've come from? You may have heard or, excuse me, you may have heard or read about the veil of forgetfulness or forgetfulness, really. And it comes over us, over the soul. And as the soul's descending into the physical realm, this veil of forgetfulness comes over us. And I've had some experiences around this, and I will share that in another podcast, but I have had some experiences around this veil. So, do we descend here to learn our lessons and experience the physical world? Because we really do experience through the physical world, through all of our physical senses. And do we keep that with us at that soul level? Could it be that we're always connected to the spiritual dimension? Maybe we're uploading a lot of these experiences to our higher self and soul whilst we're living here. What do you think about that? Even while we're living our earthly lives. We could be actually really passing up a lot of this information. Are we already living in that space? Even if we're living here in the physical world, can we exist in two places at one time? Maybe even more. But can we exist in two places at one time? Again, when we talk about space, we say in space, not on space. I think we use the language of in when there is something infinite, vast, and eternal. We use the language of on when something is finite, dense, more tangible. What if we do descend into this life and then we ascend and live back in the spiritual dimension again with full awareness? But we don't remember that part because we're here to make choices and live life to the best of our ability while we're on earth. And of course, I'm posing these questions for you to contemplate. I certainly don't have all the answers to these questions. They're food for thought, and I think it's a really great thought process to really uncover these things. Like, what are our beliefs around this, and where did those beliefs come from? I do have my own experiences and ideas around this, I must say. And what I'm going to do is touch on some of it now. And some of this has been through my client experiences. So this is where and how I've noticed what I've noticed about spiritual laws, what I've noticed about rules that come into play. I observe. And what level of I observe what level of connection and communication seems to be allowed in the sessions with my clients. So I don't tend to only do sessions with life after death with people that have lost a loved one. It just comes up during some of the sessions. Sometimes people book in specifically for that, and I can never make a promise there is going to be a connection, as I've said before. But my work is, a lot of it with anxiety, with stress, with challenges that people have, all sorts of challenges. But often there's a challenge, in this case, around someone dying, someone passing on, and the person is quite distressed, often initially with grief. So I've really taken in, observed, watched what happens when we do have connection with a spirit that has passed on, a loved one that's passed on. How does that happen? And then what is allowed? Are there rules within that connection? So I shared Tara's story, and I'm pretty sure it was in Life After Death Part 1. And when Tara came, she was so distressed. When Tara's deceased husband connected with her, they were able to have a really deep, comprehensive communication, one that took a long time. It was 3 hours that we sat there, and she had the most amazing connection with her husband. She answered all of her questions. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, Life After Death Part 1, it's a very interesting podcast. So the first session with Tara was enormous. Her husband told her on the second session that he was not allowed to have that depth of connection with her again. And this is what I'm finding, or I have found over the last 30 odd years. There seems to be some ruling around the connection with those that are living here on earth and the souls that have transitioned. And in this case with Tara, he visited her each session after that first one that was so long, and she got all of these answers from him, really in-depth discussion about the children, finances, work, all of that. And he said that he wasn't allowed to do that anymore, but he visited her each session. But he stood back, silently supporting her through his presence. So that was allowed. And I also think it was in the same podcast, Life After Death Part 1, that I also shared my client Daphne's story. So with Daphne, and if it wasn't one, it must have been two, podcast two, she was so shocked that her deceased husband, Marty, visited her each time she came to her session. She didn't believe in life after death. So it doesn't matter whether we believe in it or not, we can still make connection. She didn't even know uh, communication with a past loved one was at all possible. That's what she said to me. I never thought that would be possible. But Daphne became very comfortable and easy with her husband's presence when she did her sessions. And the other interesting thing here is the level of communication Daphne had with her husband was very different from the communication that Tara had with her husband in her session. So, what I've noticed over the years is that the initial communication is usually much more comprehensive. And of course, it is highly, highly emotional for the person. So, that first session, but there's varying degrees of communication in that first session as well. But the most important thing here is the client always experiences a sense of ease and a sense of peace, which is very, very beautiful. So, back to our discussion, Life After Death, part four. There seems to be a spiritual law about how often and at what level the communication is allowed between the living person and the visiting person or the visiting spirit or soul. So after that initial visit, the sequential visits, if there are some, because there's not always, sometimes there's just one, and sometimes there's a couple, sometimes it's every single session. They're usually less intense and the interaction is more subtle. So the first one is the most vivid, the most connected. And as I mentioned, the visiting spirit may just be present in the space with you, which brings this incredible comfort and peace, this sense of everything is okay. And I don't know if the level of communication allowed is to do with, I really don't know what it's to do with, energetic openness of the living person, a needs basis for guidance. Sometimes people are very, very distressed and very desperate. It could be the level of vibration at the time, the lowering and the raising of frequency between those parties, how really open and clear that is. There are so many variables here. So I don't know the reasons for the different levels of connection and communication, but I do believe there are spiritual laws and rules in the heavenly realms that the people in spirit must abide by. I do believe that, just watching these experiences for the past, 35 years, there seems to be spiritual laws around this. So I'd like to go to a fairly personal experience here. In fact, it's not my experience, it's my mother's experience. And not really sure what her beliefs are, funny enough, around life after death. I think she does believe in life after death, but she's not really explored it. So, approximately 4 months after my father passed away, pardon me, he passed away about 3 years and 1 month ago. So, approximately 4 months after my father passed away, my mother downsized and moved into a new apartment. And she was doing it really tough one particular day, or maybe a few days, but one day when she was feeling quite melancholy, she suddenly saw my father, and he was standing and leaning against the wall in her living area. And he had his legs crossed at the ankles and his arms crossed, and he was leaning into the wall. Now, this is a posture that he often held when he was alive. And my mother said she gasped really loudly at the sight of him, said, "Oh!" And she said, and bang, he was gone. He was gone in this split second. And she just sat there a bit stunned. And I don't think she's told anybody else about my father's visitation. That's what I like to call them, their visitations. except for me. For some reason, we don't share these visitations. And I think it's really important if you have an experience, and I've touched on this before. If you have an experience and you think, oh, did I make that up? I guarantee you didn't make it up. And I really think it's time that we did share our own experiences around our deceased loved ones with others, because what happens when you share something like that, you'll be amazed at how many people say, oh, do you know, I had an experience one day and this is what happened. It's amazing how many people have certain experiences and they don't talk about it because they're worried about what people will think. I think that's the main thing. Or questioning, did I make that up? And I guarantee you didn't. There's just too much of it that goes on. So this gives permission for other people to share their experiences. And most importantly, it brings a lot of peace to people. It brings peace to them. It brings peace to yourself. Now, my mother has not seen my father since then. And I do believe there are spiritual laws on the other side. I also I also think that having a visitation, even once, only for a second, a split second, a hundredth of a second, changes so much for the living person. I recently walked the Camino from Porto in Portugal to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. So one day he was just suddenly there with me. He was guiding me, sort of coaching me, encouraging me over a couple of days that I will say were my most challenging days. The days I was suffering with injuries and pushing myself through the pain. He was with me. He was beside me. It was like he was doing the walk with me. And I haven't seen, felt, or heard him since then. So sometimes can't say the word, these connections can be very strong, very emotional, and very, very supportive when we need it. They tend to be allowed to come through when we need it. And there's the other side to death and dying. One of my very dear friends early on in my life, her name is Judy, and I'd known Judy since we were in prep in primary school. I was 4 and Judy was 5 when we met, and we really just had a very strong friendship. And Judy passed away at 33 years of age. She had an asthma attack on Mother's Day, of all days, left 3 small children, and she never recovered from that attack. She never regained consciousness, and she died 3 days later. Now she never visited me ever. And I've never had any contact with her. And I don't know why. I was in shock for a long time when Judy died, and I really didn't know how to handle her passing. Back then, I really squashed it. So maybe my frequency wasn't high enough to connect at the time. Maybe she wasn't allowed to visit. I don't know the reason. But I have never seen, felt, or heard or had an experience of my friend Judy since she died. So, there's the other side too. Sometimes we just don't have that connection. Now, we haven't got a lot of time left. I'm going to do a little bit of a flip here. There's another side to spirit too. The preparation that goes on in the heavenly realms, the preparation to receive the incoming soul. So some of my experiences have shown me this side of transitioning. So we're never alone. You're greeted by your loved ones on the other side. So I'd like to share a fairly quick personal story about my grandmother. My grandmother, I was really very, very close to, and she was 96 when she passed away. And she was a woman who was full of passion, zest for life, and she was really fun. Now, she was an identical twin, and her twin died some years before my grandmother. And she always said she felt like half of her died when her twin died. So before my grandmother passed, I was shown very clearly the preparation and excitement going on in that higher realm. I was shown something that's hard to describe, but I'll do my best and I'll have to do it quickly. It was like a veil above me or a ceiling, and I saw my grandfather and my grandmother's twin sister like peering over the top of this ceiling. And I could just see their smiling faces looking down at me, and I could feel their love. And they were so excited about her coming home. And they had a welcome, I'm going to call it a welcome party, prepared for her arrival. There was a gathering of loved ones, and they were waiting for her. And for me, it was really comforting and really beautiful. So I do believe that there is preparation for each person, each soul that is going to transition upward. I'm just going to mention my website here, soulLifeConnection.com. It's SOUL, soul, life, LIFE, connection.com. So you can find out more about my courses, my coaching, breath work on my website. And lastly, I think I'm going to have to share my dad's passing experience with you another time. I don't really have time for that today. So I'm going to go to my closing message. So today, closing message, we're all going to go through the transition we call death one day. All of us. There's a lot of fear around death, and I think it's because we don't really understand it. I don't have fear around dying because I've seen too many things. I think it's a beautiful experience. I can only speak from my own experience and from what I've observed from both the living and the souls now in spirit. It's a divine and loving experience. And I believe that we can make our transitions more beautiful for all concerned, meaning the one who's passing and the one who is there supporting the person who is passing. And we can expand ourselves, open our hearts even more during the process and the experience. It can be a beautiful gift to everybody. And I think the passing is one that is well earned, because we're going home. I believe that we go home. Heaven is home, whatever you want to call that space is home. So we're going to end the podcast here now. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast, and I wish you many blessings, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Higher Soul Living, where you'll ignite your divine intelligence for life with me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. Join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more information and stories that inspire hope, possibilities, and a greater understanding of who you are at a higher soul level. Together we deepen the connection between the spiritual and the physical aspects of your being and align to your soul's innate intelligence. Metaphysics and the higher soul's journey are my greatest joy. I invite you to join our Facebook community, Soul Life Connection Group, and to visit my website, SoulLifeConnection.com, for more information about me, my programs, my coaching, and to tap into your higher soul's intelligence. I hope to see you next time.